We're rolling. Timer starts now. Mark. Hi, I'm Ford.
And I'm Sky. And these are not our real names. These are our superhero names, and with our powers combined, we formed the writing partnership L. Skyford. Welcome to Booklandia.
Today, we're going to review a book, most likely a romance. But before we get much further, did you know you can watch our faces do this episode by subscribing to us on Twitch at L. Skyford or YouTube at L.Skyford? You should really do it. We give good face.
And sometimes there's a dog bomb at Ford's house.
This is true. For our other socials, you can follow us on Twitter at SkyfordL, on Instagram at L.Skyford. And if you're interested in our book, blog, or even more book reviews, head over to our website, lskyford.com.
Lastly, this and every episode are chock full of oversharing and spoilers, and every episode is rated E for explicit. You have been warned.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hi. How are ya? Always having button problems.
I am. Oh, same. Mine are usually shirt buttons, though.
Mine are usually recording buttons, so...
Yeah. Welcome, all, one and all. One being you, Sky. All being all our listeners. Yep. See it again. Behold our names. We have a very special episode for you because we ain't talking about no books today. We're going to talk about each other. Ourselves.
Yeah, that's better. I was going to say, we're going to ask each other questions. Though that would have been a really cool idea for an episode, is attempting to talk about the other one. I feel like, yeah, we should write that down for later. Yeah. So we're going to talk about us. We're going to talk about what made us do this. Maybe. We're going to try.
Us, if you
the
will.
Story of us.
Yeah.
In the most romantical way, if there is such a thing about a podcast.
Shall we hold hands virtually?
Oh, wait. I can't figure out which way the cameras are set up, and that is really the best part. I was thinking today about the fact that I should switch our two images in the video because I'm always confused which way to point. For those of you listening and not watching, our video consists of two squares, one with each one of our faces, and I always point in the wrong direction.
Yep. I really got to learn window side, not window side, like a boat for this.
Yes, I feel like
thing.
I can organize it by which books are on which side of me, but constantly I'm like, that way. Like I need a little post-it on the wall over there that says Ford is that way.
Right. Sky, over here.
I mean, that kind of makes sense because the window has the sky in it. Yeah. That would work out.
Hey!
There's your mnemonic device.
Mnemonic. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. How are you doing? Before we dive in.
Absolutely. I am doing... It has been a hard week emotionally. The state has reinstated a lot of... the state I'm in, has reinstated a lot of indoor mask mandates and testings, and cases are on the rise, and the school year is about to begin. And for people with school-age children, that brings on, for some people with school-age children, myself being one of those people, that brings on a significant amount of anxiety. And I did not realize how much until it the wave of it crested over me the other day, and I just didn't want to get out of bed. And I knew exactly what was happening, right? Like this sadness has happened upon me before, and so I was like, oh cool, I'm just super low today and just gonna take it one day at a time, and then tomorrow will be a day with slightly less heaviness in it, hopefully, and then we'll go from there. So I 110% had a no shower, under the covers, shut off the world day, and now I am trying to mitigate those stressors and deal with them one at a time and really find ways forward, because obviously being under the covers, comforting as it may be, is not a long-term solution. So, really looking forward to talking about myself while also living that truth.
Look,
how are you?
It is the realist side of you, so bring it. I'm cool with it. I think, I don't know, like, no judgments here. Thank you for your realness.
Well, thank you for no judgments.
Who the fuck am I to judge? Like, come on, really.
Okay, so I wrote a little 30-second get to know us blurb the way we do with the book, except with us.
Excellent.
So do you want to read it? No promises on that copy being not terrible.
It's very short. I'm definitely going to beat the timer this time. I have
all right.
So much confidence.
I didn't want to put too much in it because I figured we'd also talk about everything. So
great.
All right.
Great.
So I'm going to count you in from 3.
Ready.
3.
Okay.
2.
Okay.
1.
Okay. We became fast friends, that me and Sky, when we discovered that we both liked the same books while working together. This was at a theater. This is just my aside for time. We have since both moved on to new jobs, but reading and chatting about our books all the time, like book club in the pandemic. This is another aside, by the way. Until one day, someone suggested we record our conversations. And voila. Honka.
Nice. Well done with the asides.
Thank you. I asided for time.
Very good. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. We did a thing and we keep doing the same thing we did and it just worked. So why mess with it? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I really hold on. Before we get to our first question, I would like to not embellish on the story. I'd like to expand the story a little bit more. So we work in theater together. We were running shows together at the time, or like in theaters next door to each other. And so we choose a book to read. And at the 25% mark of the book, we would guess what happened by the end of the book. And we would assign point values to these guesses based on whatever, our own system of guesstimation. And whoever had the most points by the end of the book won. And they got to pick the next book sometimes. And like, yeah, it was very fun because it got me to think about story structure and premeditation. Like, how's this? I'm not going to read the end, but how's it going to end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The gamification of reading was definitely the gateway for us to keep reading books together, right? It stuck us on the same book path because we sort of discovered that we had similar genre preferences, which made it easy at first to read the same books. And then we made it into a game so we could continue reading the same books, even when one of us deviated from something that the other one wanted to read, which is still the case at times when I will read something that you're reading because you're reading it and not because that would have been the book I reached for on the shelf.
Yeah, same. And I think I always in the like retcon of memory think that you were the one who said, let's read this super steamy paranormal romance series, because I don't know that I was emotionally in a place where I would have done that. So you always had the more adventurous choices, and I'm down for it now, and I'm very thankful I was down for it then.
Excellent. Well, for everyone, that series was Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark. So go get that immediately.
True that, because there's like 27 books or something there.
Yeah, you have some catching up to do. They're a delight. Okay, so tell me your earliest book memory. Like, tell me how you discovered for yourself, or how did you realize that books were a hobby? Because like rightfully so, reading or consuming book stories is truly a hobby for me, and I assume for you as well, much more so than a casual like passing.
I one of my earliest memories is I had to be a wee babe, a toddler of some kind, and I had a quilt, and I would lay the quilt out flat, and I'd spread it out, and I'd get all the wrinkles out, and then I traced the letters on the quilt, because the quilt said, a cat is a cat, and that is that. And I just would trace the letters, and I'd read the words over and over again. And like, that's one of my earliest memories is reading this quilt. And my grandmother, who I'm very similar to, like, we have very similar brains. She was an artist, so a photographer and a painter, and then she was also an English teacher. So she's the one who really got me into reading, and, you know, reading before at bedtime, always reading books. I always was reading books. And it was just who I was. Like, my dad never really understood that. And he's like, you have to go outside and play now. And I was like, nah, I'm going to stay in here and not do that. So I was one of those kids where I was so introverted and so into being inside and reading books or coloring or whatever that it didn't make sense to people. How about you?
So it's actually, sorry, I'm looking at the script and I know what your question is going to be.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be the answer.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the question then? Because then I'll answer the question.
Sure. Okay, great. I think your question had led me to writing this question. Anywho, so I personally know about your connection to Agatha Christie. We've spoken about that offline. Do you have any other deep sentimental books that you're open to sharing, or would you be open to sharing about Agatha Christie and telling that story here? Like, what books do you have really fond, shiny memories of?
So I have a lot of them, and I brought a book to read from later. But the thing that I want to really tell you is the comfort that books provided for me. Content warning. It's going to go really down, like further down than my conversation about being depressed this week before it goes way up. But it does go up, I promise. So firstly, English isn't my first language. So I read books in multiple languages, and it is not a humble brag. It just is a brag. That's just how it's going to go. And when I first came here to this country, I didn't speak a lot of English. And so reading was kind of a really difficult thing for me to do, and a thing that I couldn't do as fast as people my own age. While I was in middle school, but I wasn't reading at a middle school level. So I got sent to the library a lot. And then my grandfather passed away, and I couldn't go to his funeral, and I couldn't be present. And I was so sad. I was so close with my grandfather that I went into the library and I sat in the stacks, and all of the noise, like all of the middle school people running around with their backpacks and the chatting and the jingling of the bracelets, it all stopped. And it was just the smell of the books and this extremely comforting knowledge that around me are all of these different worlds that I can hop into. And in those worlds, I would be okay. Now I'm going to cry a little because I get to every time I tell this story. And I was over time, right? I read a book and then another, and my reading got quicker and my emotional well-being got better. Caveat, just reading books didn't do that, but having this as a barometer of like for a little bit, I can disappear into this thing, absolutely helped me get through some of the deepest griefs in like some of the darkest moments. And then in high school, I got to work in a library and help other people find the books that brought them joy. And that was incredible. And in like deep down in the who do you want to be when you grow up, under the layers of everything else that I've already picked out as the things I wanted to be, I also wanted to be a librarian. And I love the idea of a library. I love the idea of a bookstore, but I love a library because books get to have stories in them that they share over and over. And deep down, really hoping to be an elderly person who works in a library down the road. I know that's not how it works. I know that having a degree in library sciences is really helpful. I understand all of that, but still dreaming about who I want to be when I grow up. And when I grow up, I want to be a librarian.
Look, you can always volunteer for your local public library.
For
sure the city library in our area, or my area, accepts volunteers. I did that for quite a few. So like you can sit and reshelf books and shelf read and
I mean, I have
as an old person.
I've been a page. I know what a page does. I can be an assistant. I just can't be a full-fledged librarian. So if anyone in a couple of years, like 30 years, is looking for a librarian, I am ready, and I have been prepping for this my entire life.
Can we just headcanon that together as old women, we will work in the same library and just like fight at each other about books, or like we get a person in looking for a book and you're like, you got to read this book, and I'm like, nah, you got to read this book, and like we pull them in two different directions, like a Abbott and Costello skit.
I can definitely work on that. Nothing excites a young person like an elderly person handing them some super steamy romance, I gotta tell you.
Oh, is that their greatest excitement? Okay. I must have had that wrong in my head.
Let's subvert some stereotypes there.
Excellent. We shall be the wizened old people.
The wizened old people who just tell you all about the good steamy scenes the smutty smuts. Excellent. It's a plan. I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
Some people make the pact that like if we're not married by 30, we're marrying each other. It is getting romantical. If we're not done with our lives in some other way by 30 years from now, we're definitely doing some bookish thing together.
Hell yes. I'm here and I stand.
Excellent. Okay. So in my vein of talking about escaping into book worlds, do you have a favorite character that you would play pretend, or that you would want to be, like actually embody this character? Do you have a character that you're like, this, I want to be this person?
Growing up, I don't remember having that. I know I went as Belle from Beauty and the Beast because she was a bookish person, and growing up with the Disney version of her, the animated Disney version. I don't know if I need to age myself immediately, but the animated Disney.
Yes.
I felt seen because I am a white person. She is a white person. I am a bookish person. She is book. Like that was my I feel seen moment. So I went as Belle as Halloween. My mom and my grandmother made the yellow gown.
Wow.
Yeah. I have not found pictures of that recently. I should really look those up. That might be excellent to just dig up and show around. Anywho, but as an adult person, current times, present day me, I really like the character of Thursday Next. So Thursday Next is a book series by the comedic writer Jasper Fforde. Think Jasper Fforde is a lot like Christopher Moore in that his books are comedic, but they're still fiction, right? They're not in the comedy section, they're in the fiction section. So Thursday Next lives in an alternative present where one of the departments of the British government, so like MI5, MI6, is book related. And they, what do? They research any found lost Shakespearean plays and determine if they were actual Shakespeare plays. They do all of this like bookish stuff, and it's effing delightful. Yes, mine are right here.
I know, I'm looking for mine, which should be right behind me.
Yeah. So mine are right here. I have a couple on loan because I love Thursday Next so much. So Thursday Next is one of these agents who works in this British department, and she finds a way to go into books. So like book inception. And she goes into books to make sure Mrs. Havisham does what she's supposed to do in the book. She makes sure she goes into all these different books to keep things regulated, but also like, why is this fucking happening? She also has a pet dodo, so like, chef's kiss. It's just delightful. So the idea of physically moving into a book and experiencing the book Westworld style, if you will, is so intriguing to me. And I don't know. I think about like reading romance, and you know how it's going to end. You know there's going to be a happily ever after. If you're going into a book where you know how it ends, there's safety there. You can experience the thing the character experiences. You know what's coming, but you know that you're safe as well. How about you? What one character would you most want to integrate?
As a teenager, I wanted to be D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers.
Woo!
Oh, I read that first Lady de Winter scene and immediately went, I want to be in that bedroom. How am I not in that bedroom? Someone put me in this bedroom.
This is not the topic for it, but sexual awakening?
I mean, it wasn't sudden. I always knew. So, sure. Like, the fact that she probably was the first, that scene, that the beginning of Three Musketeers when D'Artagnan ends up with, he doesn't know that she's Lady de Winter at the time, but he ends up with her in bed. That was probably one of the first sex scenes that I read on in a book. So it was definitely my discovery of sex scenes in books and realizing that I really wanted to read more of them. But yeah, absolutely. Like, that happened, and then everything else that happens to him happens. I wanted to be D'Artagnan so bad. I still kind of do. I mean, I now understand all of the other issues in there, but still, he gets the girl and the other girl and the sword and like friends
and the penis that is a sword.
It all works pretty well for him. So yeah, hard yes on D'Artagnan. I also really, previous to this, I really wanted to be, so this is kind of a fascinating moment. So The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen is one of my favorite fairy tales. And I love Gerda and the fact that she saves the boy the girl saves the boy in the book, right? She goes out and grows up and then saves him while he blindly follows an older woman who promises him all the things in the world. So I loved all of that, but I wanted to be Kai. I wanted to be saved by a very capable girl.
Look, it's all making sense now. I was gonna ask, do you like strong women? But I think you've answered that.
Very much, yes.
Excellent. I have a confession, and I hope this doesn't ruin our relationship.
You've never read The Snow Queen?
No, well, I've never read The Snow Queen. I've also not read Three Musketeers.
Goodness, I'm pulling both of them off of my shelf right now and putting them in a bag for you.
Shove them in my face. Excellent. I mean, I'm familiar with the story because Three Musketeers is canon, pop culture canon.
Yes,
so
definitely. I highly recommend reading both of those. Pop culture has stripped away quite a bit of them.
Okay, but yes, we digress. Back on the list. What? Yes. Who? That's the proper. Woof. Okay. Who is the worst or most evil character you've ever read? Who do you hate the most?
So this is really interesting. This is a character I'm to this day really fascinated by. I read this book by John Fowler called The Collector, and it is a story about a man who abducts a woman and the woman, and you read the story from both points of view. You read it first from her point of view, and then you read it from his point of view, and it is written in such a way that you begin to sympathize with him, and you begin to understand why he's doing what he's doing. And then it switches back to her point of view, and it ruins you. It absolutely ruins you, because you realize that you sided with him. And I love the way that's written. And I think, I mean, he's a very insidious character. And in the same way, Hannibal Lecter is like very similarly so. You sympathize with Hannibal, and then someone reminds you that he's eating people. Yeah. Right? And then you're like, but I definitely just agreed with his choices. So
I mean, that reminds me.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No,
your answer.
Please. That was it.
It reminds me about how actors talk about playing bad guys, and how they don't justify. They go into the psyche of the character that they're playing and understand why they're that way, and they unpack all of that to find the humanity in their reasons, that and how that all got twisted. That's terrifying, and I don't like it at all. So,
I'm so fascinated by it. So I've read all of the Hannibal Lecter series stuff with the same fascination as I read The Collector, because it is definitely one of those things where you're like, I just sided with this person who is definitely not a good person.
I did not know that you've read all that you have that interest and fascination. Interesting. The more you know. Rainbow sound effect.
Ding!
Nailed it. That's, yep.
That was terrifying. That was terrifying. I'm never doing that again. Okay, who's the most evil character you read?
I don't know. I couldn't think of an answer to this question. To pivot away from your question, but still answer it tangentially. One of the book series I loved as a young person and went on to collect as an adult is the Redwall series. So it's a middle grade series of books. There's like fucking 25 of them.
Yeah.
And it's about mice and squirrels, and they all live in an abbey, and they cook acorn soup and sing songs, but then they also have to fight stoats and weasels who try to come for their treasure or whatever. And I don't know, so like stoats and weasels are thumbs down in my book. Just as an adult person, I'm like, oh, that stoat probably has some bad intentions, and it's just a fucking animal. So I don't know, I think I have some prejudices against animals because of that series.
Based on that series?
Absolutely. There are definitely some people I didn't hate to watch die reading Game of Thrones books.
Oh.
Like, yeah, I can't think of like one quintessential bad guy or bad person. Bad guys are just sad guys.
Bad guys are sad guys. Yeah. As our friend says. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I thought about in Cinder and the rest of the Lunar series, what's
the Moon Queen?
The Moon Queen, who then got a book of her own in which it is explained why she's the way that she is. And so even though she is truly sinister, you find out why. And bad guys are sad guys.
Yeah. I look at the books I still have, and I'm like, no.
One of the other ones I just thought of that was really cool. Oh, go ahead.
Gilead.
I mean,
for The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, but who is the bad guy there? Just Gilead?
The system.
The system. The world. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The one I thought of is Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, for an extremely controversial situation. Humford. Yes. So I love him, which I know is terrible.
Huh.
I completely fall for his antics every time I read that book, which is more than once, by the way. And then I'm like, wait, he's a pedophile. Like, this should not happen. I should not be on his side of the story. And yet,
I only got like halfway through that book.
It's one of the ones I've read in the multiple languages I am capable of.
Good Lord. We're learning so much. And it's that you've read a bunch that I haven't read.
Right.
Cool,
which
cool,
is
cool,
great.
cool, cool,
Which
cool.
is great. You can fill me in on the ones that you've read that I haven't. Like this mice situation. Like, I know about the series you speak of, but I have not read it because I was older than this series by the time that I came here, and it hadn't, like, I just hadn't seen it. So I'm waiting to read it now with my littles when they're slightly biggerish.
I'm thinking 2 more years, and then I will just start lending you and your littles my books, assuming they're still into reading and this series interests them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But so my point about bad guys is that I don't really, I mean, like, Machiavelli's The Prince, I guess, because, like, that's the whole point. Oh, you're making the face of, I've never read that before. That's literally this book right here. That's what's happening right there.
The skinny one. Yeah.
This one with the old spine.
Look, I haven't read that book, and I'm sorry, not sorry.
That's okay. You basically know the premise.
I mean, yes, another one of those that has fallen into the pop culture canon. Yeah. Yes. Oh man, yeah. Bad guys are sad guys. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there a book, singular, that breaks you open? It could be sad. It could be happy. It could be like, I read this book and my whole world shifts for a tiny amount of time or a long time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I want to reframe your question because I'm part robot and therefore don't feel feelings.
Very good.
Yes. I also want to underline, I'm not a rereader. So I know there are 2 camps, those who reread, those who don't. I'm the person who's like, but there's this other book I haven't read that can surprise me. So I will tell you the first book I remember breaking me open. And that is The Time Traveler's Wife. Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffinger. And my memory of that is the first time I ever ugly cried over a book. Like, sobbed. Like, inconsolable for minutes at a time. That is maybe the best romance. Like, might be the romance I compare all other romances to. It's an incredible story, and it broke my heart and all the other pieces attached to it. My heart is now free floating in space, in the void, sans gravity pieces. So, I think, that's the first one that broke me open in a sad human feeling, empathy. I wish I could time travel way, because as I've noted in our time traveling mini-sode, I love a fucking time travel. This, I think, was the start. That was the impetus, was that book right there.
That makes sense.
Yeah. How about you? Break you open.
So firstly, any book on my Goodreads shelf that is a 5-star book has broken me open. And I can talk at length about each one of them. That's how they get the 5-star review from me, is if I'm just completely undone by it in a happy way or in a sad way or in a transformative way. Like, it did monumentally something to me. And so there's a bunch of them that I can name. But the one that comes to mind as a book that I reread periodically to literally shift my perspective on the world is Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Herman Hesse. And yeah, it's on my shelf. It's literally 24 pages long.
I know,
But
and you recommended it to me at the beginning of pandemic, and
did.
I didn't get into it.
It's fine. It tells the story of the world from the standpoint of a seagull. That's all it does. So like floating on hot air. He does do that actually, yes. But like floating on hot air and just letting air carry you because it will is like, there are just so many fascinating things that once I read them, I'm like, oh yeah, like the ground will hold me, right? Like there are some fundamental truths that I take for granted that if I stop and feel instead of just discarding, it just shifts something for me.
I don't know. That's almost more stop overthinking and trust.
Yes. That's one of the, I mean, the book is a commentary on Buddhism and finding nirvana. And so like the know that the air will hold you, know that the ground will carry you type of thing. It is, they like stop and breathe and know that the planet is continuing to spin type of thing. And that's what it does, right? It just, for me, it really recenters me and helps me be like, yeah, there's like mold on my bread and I have to throw it away, but that's okay. Temporary setback,
right?
Large scale. So
mold is still life.
Mold is still life. Let it mold. Just not on my counter. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where it's at.
Great. Have you ever thrown a book across the room?
Yes. Several.
Which ones?
Okay. So the ones that come to mind are the first that comes to mind is Nicholas Sparks's A Walk to Remember, because I could not believe, spoiler alert, I could not believe that he didn't like sort out a miracle for her, and he was just like, they just get married and then she dies. I was like, what? Why did I just read this? I was very frustrated. And then the other one that absolutely made me throw it across the room was, sorry, I've just realized that both of these happened right about at the same time, like when I was 17 or 18. So this might have also been a very volatile emotional time for me. The other book is Orson Scott Card's Xenocide.
That's three like, in the...
It's the third one in the original quartet.
Yeah.
Yes. And there is something that happens.
First one.
I'm a deep dive Ender lover. Yeah. I've read everything that's been part of that series. And yes, I know about Orson Scott Card's other writing, and I do disagree with it, but Ender forever. And there's something that happens in Xenocide, which is very sad. It is, in fact, Xenocide that happens. And I was so frustrated that an imaginary world can be destroyed, right? That like this thing that he created, he then tore apart for the purposes of the book, and it's fiction, but it was so frustrating. And so I checked the book. Yeah. And then I picked it back up and I finished reading it. But
Right. Hold on. I have the exact book I threw across the room.
Okay. All right.
This is really great audio, I'm sure. This is the first book and only book I've really ever thrown across the room. George R.R. Martin, Feast of Crows. This is the book that has the red wedding. And that is the moment I threw the book across the room. I'm pretty sure it's this one. I remember throwing red across the room. Because of how fucking well written the Arya chapter is at the Red Wedding. Like, she has traveled all this way to find her brother, finally be reunited with her family. She gets there, they're all being slaughtered. She runs away, and the mountain hits her in the head with an axe, and you're like, you are not killing my favorite character. How fucking dare you? Rage throw. So.
Got it.
it's a very interesting thing in that there are a bunch of characters and then lots of people die. And so by the end of it, you have this handful of main characters that you follow. And the multi-POV is really, I liked it. I'm here for it. I could not get through the history of the Targaryen book. That DNF'd super fast. Whenever the next Song of Fire and Ice comes out, I will read that. So it's a thing for me. I'm here for it.
All right. Okay.
Shall we break?
Yes, let's do that for just a sec.
Okay, we're going to take an intermission right here. When we come back, we're going to break down our favorite moment from the book.
And discuss our ratings and if this book made us want to get naked.
Please enjoy this message from one of our friends in the podcasting world.
All right.
Hi.
And we're back.
Quick break. Yeah, we
Quick
are.
break.
And we ain't talking about no book today, girl. We are talking about ourselves and each other.
Yes, we are. We are talking about us. This is the mid-season Get to Know Us. Also, it's mid-season. We have gotten through half a season of chatting about books, particularly romance books. And so I'm gonna get into some of that a little bit. We are gonna get to sexy books. We will. It will happen in this episode. I know we started like on a really sentimental note. We got to get to the sex at some point.
I mean, please and thank you.
Having said that, the very next thing I'm going to talk about is going to be sentimental again.
Cool.
So the thing I want to talk about is, do you have a favorite moment in a book? Like a moment when you're like, this moment sticks out when someone's like, convince me that books are not lame. Which, by the way, if someone says that to you, unfriend them immediately. But no, first educate.
Yeah. Oh, I will definitely just walk away from this conversation.
See, that's not the librarian way. You gotta bring them into the fold.
Yeah, fine. I mean, I can't think of a final page right now in this moment because I didn't think about it and prepare it. But I can tell you a first page, and that is the first page of Pride and Prejudice. Because every movie adaptation of Pride and Prejudice fucking nails Mrs. Bennet.
That's true. I do love most Mrs. Bennet choices.
Yes, she is the most loving, frivolous person, and her constant I hate this word, but nagging of Mr. Bennet to get their daughters married, and like her anxiety over every social interaction is just like, that first page is canon, and it's in every movie, every adaptation, and if it's not, garbage. Throw it in the garbage, never to be seen again.
Can I just sidebar here to shout out the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice, in which there's absolutely a scene in which it is implied that Mr. Bennet goes down on Mrs. Bennet as a thing they do on a Sunday. And I died a little because it's Donald Sutherland, but in the best, like I screamed and clapped the screen when I saw it, because he definitely comes up out from under the covers, and it's the middle of the afternoon after they went to church.
Yeah. I mean, nothing gets people horny like Christ.
I mean, sure, we'll go with that. But I just love the fact that their sexual relationship was part of the story, that you really got a sense of the fact that they aren't just like, they're frivolous, but they're clearly loving. And I think the Mr. Bennet character usually comes across as a very doting father, but the fact that he was both a man to his wife and a father to his daughters was such a lovely addition. So like, there are other bits about that particular adaptation that I really like, but the fact that they treated the adults, the grown-ups in quotes, of the family as also sexual beings, chef's kiss to that.
Chef's kiss. So that's my answer. What about you?
Okay, so I brought show and tell. I've read The Little Prince because this moment, and I tell people about this moment, and it sort of spoils the book. You have to know what the book is about to understand this. But the allegory of The Little Prince is to always have a little bit of whimsy in you, and to never grow up, and to have your imagination be blown open at all times. And so this is the this, by the way, this edition that I'm holding is the pop-up book
Yeah, it is.
edition. So if you don't have this one, highly recommend it. It's amazing. The artistry in the pop-up is brilliant. I have this book like 5 different ways. I love this book. Okay, so this is what the final page says. It's all a great mystery for you who love The Little Prince too. As for me, nothing in the universe can be the same if somewhere, no one knows where, a sheep we never saw has or has not eaten a rose. Look up at the sky and ask yourself, has the sheep eaten the flower or not? And you'll see how everything changes. And no grown-up will ever understand how much a thing could be so important.
I mean, that is also basically the basis for the multiverse.
Yes, it is. And right, and like, and
yeah,
the whole, I can talk about The Little Prince for a very long time, and I don't want that to become our episode, but it's the book about the possibilities. It's about multiverse. It's about all the stories that have been told and all of the stories that we haven't heard yet. And wouldn't it be wonderful to listen with open hearts and hear all of the stories? And that is like, that's the basis of existence as proper humans, right? And he puts it so succinctly and so wonderfully and so heartbreakingly. Go read The Little Prince. Get at me after you've sobbed your eyes out.
I've read that one.
Yay!
Only after I met you, though. So you're the reason.
There we go. Well, I'm glad. You know what? I have done my job in passing on the books that are a must in my universe.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, now that we've I've just told you all the sobby stories in my life, let's talk about why we chose to do a romance podcast. Because for those of you who don't know, which is everyone, romance was not a thing we were reading. That was not our genre. And when I tell our mutual friends, I told someone recently what we were doing, and they were like, why? Like, with a face.
Cool.
And I was like, well, we have our reasons, but this is why. So why are you doing a romance podcast?
So we, like I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, we started reading romance in our 2-person book club. And we continued to read romance. I know I continued because I needed a little sexual stimulation. I need a little sexual healing. Things that made me tingly between the twinglies. And
sorry, that is a euphemism.
Nope.
That's a lot.
Yep, you're welcome. You're welcome for that. I just made that up on the spot, so you're welcome. And like there are very few books that I won't read. I'm very book easy. I'm a book slut, one could say. I'm self-declaring book slut. And then the pandemic happened, and we needed a fucking escape. We needed to get out of the real fucking world where people were dying. And romance is number 1 there. Like, YA tackles the hard shit. Like, growing up, learning shit, going through tough things. Teenagers have it rough in the YA book fiction world. That was too heavy. Romance, though, you know what's going to happen. You know there's going to be some fucking along the way. Easy. So we started an online book club during the pandemic. We expanded our 2-person to be larger, and we just read our way through romances. And that was very Dependable, I think. It was comforting. I knew what the end was. It goes back to me going into a book, knowing the end, knowing what to expect. What I like about being here in Romancelandia is that it's not a community of misogynists. Most romance readers are women. The community itself is every day becoming more and more queer, or less and less binary, as it were. The romance community has huge numbers of Black authors, Indigenous authors, like people of color are writing in this genre. Queer authors are writing, the number of hockey romances that are gay is not shocking to me, but is still surprising. It's still so surprising. So, like, it's a community of love, right? Full stop. So, I don't know. I like that. I like that we're here now, and that's the vibe.
Nice.
How about you? Why do you think we chose romance for our podcast?
Partially, I think because we are the fish out of water in this particular trope.
That's true.
Right. As we discover new authors, as we discover what works for us, that's why those conversations that we were having were so compelling, and why it was suggested that we maybe put it out into a larger audience for us to have the conversations. Because as we read through things, and there's been instances when we've discovered that we were wrong. And that too is really impactful. And then moreover, there is something so significant about who reads romance and what is published in terms of explicit sex scenes, in terms of telling diverse stories, and that diversity may exist in niche markets, but you have to go look for it. So queer romance has been written for as long as writing was available, but it was maybe subversive, or it was maybe hidden away in the one bookstore in all of the state where you had to like go into the basement of a thing. That is no longer the case.
Or it was coded, as we're probably going to talk about in our next episode.
Yes, exactly. So there is, I mean, my answer in the script says fuck the patriarchy, but basically it is the genre that is breaking the barriers most loudly and most constantly. Yeah. And it is good to see.
Sorry.
No, that was my last sentence. And it is good to see.
I only in the past couple of years, started breaking my Goodreads tags up into if the authors are persons of color or if they're white. And so I only have data for a couple of years, but this is turning out to be the year where I'm most closely equal 50-50 reading Black authors or persons of color authors to white authors. And I think it's because I've primarily been reading romance. And I think some of our favorite authors are people of color. And like, it's enlightening. It's enlightening, and I am appreciative of those stories being available to me, of depictions of Black love out there.
Yes, so there's that. Okay, we're finally gonna get to
last question. Oh Jesus, look at the time. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so hottest take is what I call this category. Okay,
nice.
What is out of all the books that we've recently read, or really at large, and we've already talked about my D'Artagnan obsession, but what is the one book or series of books that made you want to get naked the most?
Cool. All right. So I have the hugest, veiniest, slickest lady boner for Jamie Fraser from Outlander. So it might just be Sam Heughan it's a big part of it. It's fun. It's totally cool. But my lady boner is so big it's peeking out of the waistband of my pants.
I love, by the way, that you wrote that. That's fantastic.
You know it. That's the most romantical thing I could think of. Yeah, he's my number one lady boner fantasy. So Jamie Fraser, Outlander, all the way, all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, luckily you have quite a few books to fulfill that.
I do. But like now they're putting Brianna and what's his name in there, and I don't care about it. And now Jamie's old, like they did a 20-year jump.
He is
and I'm just
older. He's not
he's old now. He's so old.
He's still extremely sexy.
True that. Full stop. Full stop. Yeah.
So for me the answer is so far almost every book by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Not only are her sex scenes hot, but they are also really diverse in terms of what happens. And I am always surprised and also turned on, which is my favorite. Yeah. I like a surprised and turned on. In books, not in life. In life, I prefer fewer surprises. But in books, I enjoy a good surprise once in a while. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Ha.
Yeah.
Ha, with the pun. But so in her Beards and Bondage series, she has the third book in that series is called Harbor. And it is about a threesome. And there is a very lengthy playtime in a dungeon situation that was very surprising because it just kept going. And I was like, we're not done. We're still not. I'm going to keep flipping these pages. Prepare yourself because it is a solid 50 pages of just sex. There's 3 of them. They got to take care of each other more than once at a time.
Sure.
It's a delight. And by delight, I mean really explicit sex. So, yes, I think about the way those scenes are written and how illicit it is, but also how it didn't make it seem like I wasn't invited into that room with them, and how it felt very safe, which is hard to do in if you're not a polygamous person, if you're not a person who's participated in a threesome, or even if you have, but you need to feel safe in a space and you're reading through that book really made the space feel safe, which made it, as we've talked before, consent is sexy. And that book has really specific consensual moments, and it's really lovely. So, so Rebecca Weatherspoon is the way to my lady bits, I guess.
Yeah, she is. Heyo. Great.
Go read Rebecca Weatherspoon right away.
Yeah. Yes. No. Hella sexy. I have not read that one either. Apparently we should have instigated a drinking game of books right. I have not read.
Ford has not read. That's quite a few. You don't have to, but I recommend that you do.
Yeah, no, I'm good. It'll be fine. Well, it's been lovely getting to know you.
Yes, turns out there's quite a bit to share.
Apparently, after 11 years, there's more to know.
There's always more to know. Like this stack of books I'm taking to your house.
I expect one of those IKEA-sized tote bags.
Accurate. That will happen.
Cool. Thank you for joining us for 12 episodes so far. Yes. And I hope you enjoy the next 12 to 11. I think we have 11 planned after
yes.
This, so
yes, yeah. This is the peak. So it went up to here and then it'll come down from here, roller coaster style.
In number, but not quality. Hopefully.
Oh yes, thank you for clarifying that and promising to maintain quality over quantity.
Yeah. My drunk brain is very specific.
Well, enjoy the rest of your drunk afternoon and evening, and have a great one.
You as well. So are you, dear audience human, gonna pick up this book now that you've heard our review? let us know in the comments. Have a suggestion for another review? Slide on into our DMs.
If you like this adventure in books or updates on our upcoming projects, please follow, like, save, subscribe, rate, review us on Instagram at l.skyford, on Twitch at lskyford, and on Twitter at skyfordl. Phew. I'm Sky.
And I'm Ford. That's it for this episode. We'll see you next time on Booklandia, where every book is a whole world to explore. And we're out.